Okay, excellent. Are you guys ready for Thanksgiving? Getting there? Good. All righty. So I have four people here today. A couple of you look very comfortable. There are just a few things that I wanted to go over with. I wanted to talk about there. I've gotten an email or two, so I wanted to address that. And then I wanted to explain what the rest of the term will look like as we move forward. And then if you have any questions after we're done talking about all that, feel free to give me questions. I am hoping only to do about 15 minutes because even though it is the university schedule that we have to meet today, this week, I don't want to do it for too long. If that's all right with you, if you want to meet longer than that, let me know and I can keep talking. Now, how is everybody doing right now? Is anybody else sick? I haven't been able to get stop coughing because it's not the dreaded COVID. It's just that my throat is dry. And I come from Washington State, which is a lot wetter than Utah. Sometimes it's just
Wait, where from Washington are you from?
southeast corner.
I'm from Bellingham.
I'm from the Tri Cities area.
Oh, okay. I have friends that live in the Tri-Cities.
It's south of 5 nuclear power plants.
Oh.
There were actually seven when I was growing up. Two of them have been fully decommissioned, and I think another three have been decommissioned since then. But the they took especially after Chernobyl, they took safety very seriously. If you work inside the nuclear power plants by the Tri Cities, you actually impact less radiation than you do in the sunlight wearing a digital glow in the dark watch and holding your cell phone. Did you know that? So it's actually very safe, relatively, unless you happen to live in the path of a tsunami or or if you go to school in Chernobyl. All right, now the I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a hard time breathing. So please make sure that you remember your questions and don't let me forget them. Okay. There are a couple concerns. I have gotten two emails out of the 50 people in the class, and I wanted to address those concerns. One is somebody was asking about hours per week or per module. Best practices for an art class nationwide is that you are expected, or the students are expected to do 3 hours of work per credit hour of the course, and that's per week. I teach two classes at UVU that are art classes, and we meet in class for about 5 hours, and then everybody's expected to do about 4 hours of work outside of class. And I don't know, Kendall was there at the very beginning, and Casey was there at the very beginning. The very beginning of the class, the first meeting that we had, I went over the syllabus, and one of the things I mentioned is that if you do a quality work is going to be about an average of 9 hours per week for the class. And most people in this class have been doing between 5 and 9 hours per module on the course, and I think that is completely appropriate. So I wanted to let you know that I've taken other classes that required a lot more time. Um, I was while I was at BYU, I took a couple classes that needed 6 credit hours or 6 hours of work per credit hour of course, and they were 3 credit hour courses. So that required 18 hours of work a week. And I was also working, this was about, I want to say about 15, 16 years ago. And I was also had a full time job and two part time jobs. So that was a really crappy semester, by the way, let me tell you. How many of you are working? I think that's, and how many of you are athletes? I think that that is a really challenging thing to juggle, especially when you're an athlete trying to do any course. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to the next one on due dates. Um, who remembers my policy regarding due dates in the class? What is it, Kendall or Ryan? Either one.
There's not like the due date's just there to give you a guideline, but as long as it's turned in by the final day, you'll get credit.
Exactly. And the reason I say that is that I've had a couple people write rather panic sounding emails, and there's really no reason to. Life happens. I know you guys are living people. I don't know that. I'm assuming that you're living people, and things go crazy. I mean, that's the way it is. And so sometimes people turn in things on time, sometimes they don't. And in my classes, it doesn't really matter. It is mostly for you so that you can see the Canvas notification that something's due. This week, I'm going to finish getting caught up on grading everything so everybody knows where they're standing. But I wanted to make sure everybody knew that too, because I do not want people to stress out about it, especially since this is Thanksgiving and I do have the PowerPoint due on Sunday. If you guys get it done by next Friday, that is going to be perfectly fine. All right. So don't try really hard not to stress about it. Does that help anybody's brain pan? Knowing that you do not have to stress about it. Please don't. So that was the next big thing I wanted to talk about with the PowerPoint, because a couple people have said, hey, I've got to go. We're doing Thanksgiving and I'm not going to have access to a computer, blah, blah, blah. Again, the due dates are so that you can see that Canvas needs an assignment, not so that I have an excuse to ding you points. All right. Then I also wanted to talk about what the rest of the semester is going to look like. We're just going to have basically 2 more modules for the rest of the semester. One of them is going to be for the next 2 weeks, and that will be the final project. The final project will be, you guys, this last one was doing a brainstorm session for building something for the old Mali empire. And your final project will be spending 2 weeks just building it, whatever it is. And you can use whatever materials are cheapest and easiest to get for you. You can build it out of garbage if you need to. I don't really care what you do, but I will send a module out so that it clarifies it a little bit. But I want you to build something that comes from your unique life experience and perspective that you know the Mali kingdom needed but didn't have for the Mali Empire. And you're going to be using your deductive reasoning skills. You're going to be using your critical thinking skills, the 4 tools of artistic critique to evaluate the art period of the old Mali Empire. Why is the Mali Empire art an art period rather than an art movement? Does anybody remember? What's the difference between an art period and an art movement? How long will an art movement last? Maybe 5 to 20 years. How long will an art period last? I know all of you guys are really studious and you watched all those videos. Remember what the differences are? Art periods are bound by geographic location and cultural connection. So an art period may last as long as the culture is does that produces the art. So, for example, you may have the Christians living in Jerusalem after the Second Crusade. Their art period may last 3 generations, so about 100 years. Whereas you go to Egypt, how long do you think the art period, the old Egyptian art period of the Old Kingdom was? I think that lasted for about 1,200 years. Do you see what I'm talking about with that? And then when you go to an art movement, you get Dadaism or hyperrealism or minimalism or postmodernism or any of those kinds of isms. They're going to last anywhere between 3 years and maybe 30 years at the very most. The difference is that they deal not with geographical area and cultural connection, but they deal with responses to thought. And that's the big difference between art movements and art periods. So you're building something that looks like it will fit directly into the Mali Empire art period that lasted when between the time that Sundiata took over the reins of government for the next about 400 years. And this is the style that we see that is punctuated by the architecture as that we were looking at, as well as the equestrian rider sculptures that we looked at. So you're going to have the rest of the term to work on that, and you're going to have the rest of the term to finish, redo quizzes, finish the other assignments, and things like that. And then our final, I wanted to talk a little bit about the final. What the final will be is another quiz like we did for the midterm that is made up of quizzes of stuff that you've already taken. And then I will also have a series of about 4 or 5 reflections that deal with issues of the class. And that's what I'm going to do because this is a online class. I'm going to release that module. I'll publish it on the first day of finals, and you will have until midnight of the last finals day to do that final. And it's not going to be closed book or anything like that. It's open book just like everything else. And but you'll have that 4 or 5 days to time period to take it. All right. Does anybody have any questions now? If you don't have any questions directly, can each of you think of one question that somebody else in the class might have?
So if we're behind, what projects or things would get us the most points to catch up in the class?
That's a really good question, and sadly the answer kind of sucks. I think all the projects have the same point value except for just a couple of them. So I would go through and look for the highest point value ones to do and start with those. Yeah, manage your time and look at the highest point value ones to do. All right. That's an excellent question. Anybody else? I would like to get one question from each of the remaining 3 people. Olivia, Ryan, and Casey. Not one question necessarily that you have, but think of one question that you think one of the other students might have.
When is the deadline for like all work to be turned in?
Midnight on the last day.
Okay.
And that's the last day of the final. So if you don't have everything done before the finals start, you'll have the days of the finals to get everything turned in. And I want to tell you something. I had one of the students that became a friend. His parents were both in their 60s when COVID hit, and he was taking my class during the COVID period. And he fell way behind because he was working, taking care of his parents. Now, that's when I put this policy in place where everything is due on the last possible moment. That last week of finals, he was able to bring his grade up from a D to an A minus because he turned everything in. So that is what you can do. All right. Okay, looking for two more questions, one from Ryan and one from Casey. That was an excellent question, Olivia. Thank you.
What would you say are the easiest materials to use on the final project?
That's an excellent question. I think that, and this may sound kind of funny, but one of the easiest sets of materials to use is making a sculpture out of paper. Now, do you have a stapler?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. What you can do is make a sculpture out of paper where you just staple a bunch of paper together on the edges and then staple it into like a pillow. So, you put your sheets of paper together like that, and then you have several of them like this together, and you staple that until you make it however big you want to make it. And then you have two of those, staple the edges all the way around until you have everything closed except for like one area that's about 6 inches wide. Ball it paper and fill it up on the inside, so you're making basically a pillow. All right, can you imagine this? And then staple it closed. That way you've made it a great big pillow that you can use as a basis for a sculpture. From that, you can either use paper mache, or you can tape or glue strips of paper on it to give it texture. You can glue other pieces of paper onto it. You can use markers, anything else to decorate it with. You can make several of those and put them together with different angles and tape it. You can do an awful lot of different kinds of things making a paper pillow. Does that make sense? And you can look this up. I believe you can find things about making a paper pillow sculpture on YouTube, and there's a lot of really cool stuff there. Another thing that you can do is make your own paper clay. And I found a recipe that I can share with people that looks like a pain in the neck, where it's basically flour, glue, water, and torn up paper. Or you can go the route that I used to do, which is get several sheets of printer paper, tear them up into about half-inch squares, soak that in a bag of water overnight, and then what you can do is pull out handfuls of this and kind of squish it to get the water out. But if you don't squish all the water out, you can start molding it just like you would a spitball. And you've made a spitball essentially with tap water and printer paper. And then you can use that and sculpt with that. Getting enough paper to make a glop, that's the technical term for it, about the size of like 4 fists together. So it's about this big. You can sculpt that into pretty much anything. And then once it dries, you can actually color it with markers or tea or whatever it is that you have. But that is the cheapest way to make essentially something that functions like clay. And you can make that out of past assignments that you've already printed up. You don't have to do new paper. But those are both very good questions. If you have garbage, or you go to Smith's and get their old cardboard boxes, or Costco, and tell them you're doing a project for a class at Costco, and they will give you boxes and garbage and stuff like that as well. And you could use that kind of material. One of the exercises that I had students do was make furniture out of cardboard that was life size that you could sit in. And you could do that relatively easily, as long as you're aware that when you stick layers of cardboard together, it will become strong enough that it can support your weight. And you can look up cardboard furniture online on YouTube as well, and it will show you how to make that. So that's another option. What I'm really hoping people don't do is I will give you the worst example in the class out of any of the classes that I've taught in the last 20 years. Two bad examples. One was Lego. Somebody had taken one of those little green Lego mats and made a Lego wall, and a guy walking up to the wall, and she claimed that was her sculpture. And I didn't realize she was being serious, and so I laughed and I made her cry. Um, don't do that. That's a really bad idea. Not the whole making her cry thing. You can do that if you want. Don't make a Lego thing, and that uses 20 blocks and hope to get any credit for it. The other thing that was a really bad idea, we were talking about contemporary processes, and Jean-Claude and Christo would wrap things with plastic. So one of the students thought that he'd save a lot of time, took 20 strips of masking tape and just stuck them to a balloon so that they dangled down. That doesn't do anything for anybody. It's just a massive waste of tape and a waste of time. So don't do anything like that. If you really don't know what to do and you've done your brainstorming, get a hold of me and we will talk about it. I'm more than happy to work over ideas. And that's what this next couple of weeks is for. Talk to me about your brainstorming and talk to me about what you want to do. And I will help you figure out what materials to use and how to do it. All right? All right. Casey, can you think of a question that somebody might have?
How are you wanting us to turn in our sketchbook entries?
That's an excellent question. If you go to the attendance module, you'll look, the first one says sketchbook. And in that, I think it was just, all you got to do is submit photos of the pages that have each of your sketchbook entries. Does anybody remember how many sketchbook entries there needs to be? 35. And 2/3 of those need to be drawings, and 1/3 of them can be written notes, and that's totally fine. All right? Casey, that was an excellent question. Thank you. Oh, no. I've gone 10 minutes over from what I told you I wanted to do. But that's okay. Everybody got their questions in. If you guys have any other questions, please email me and let me know. And what I would like to do as well is open it up for extra credit. Anybody wants extra credit, we'll do a last visit on a specific day during finals, but that will not be your final. Will be the assignment that I give everybody, the quiz and the 4 reflections that you write. That's going to be your final. If you want extra credit, we'll have another meeting then, and we'll talk about things then. Okay? But over the next couple of weeks, I would like everybody to think about their Sundiata project. And if you can, if you have questions about it, just like Ryan did, ask me and I will do whatever I can to help. Okay? All right. Anybody have any fun plans for Thanksgiving? Anybody have any terrible plans for Thanksgiving? Okay, good. I would like very much for you guys to stay safe. Don't get arrested. Do everything you can to get back to school next week. And don't eat so much that you make yourself sick unless you are absolutely confident that it will be worth it. All right? And we'll see you guys later. We'll see you guys on Tuesday.